Today, let's make a chocolate cake with raspberry frosting. It's so good, it's so yummy, it's perfect for spring, and yeah, I'm gonna show you exactly how to make it. Stick around. Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is my handmade lifestyle and I'm Patty. I go by Patty Mac Makes everywhere online. Today we are making a Betty Crocker chocolate cake. It is beautiful. You just finished decorating it. It's setting up in the freezer. The frosting was so easy to make. It's literally my American buttercream frosting, same recipe. I just added in 20 grams of pulverized freeze-dried raspberries. I get those at Trader Joe. I'm sure they're on Amazon. Everything is. So definitely get them. You want to use the dried fruit because it has more flavor and it won't affect the consistency of your frosting. Frosting can already be a little bit of a challenge to get right. Don't make it harder on yourself by putting in more liquid. And definitely don't put in raw fruit. If you try to whip raw fruit into a frosting, that ain't nothing but a mess. So don't go there. You don't even need to put food coloring in this frosting. It's so pretty. So if you're looking for something cool for Mother's Day, this might be exactly up your alley because it is cute and my mom loves it. Okay, without further delay, let's jump in and see how to make this cake today. Here's what I used to make the chocolate cake in today's recipe video. This is my version of a cake mix hack. So what I did was substituted the water for buttermilk. I have 1 1/4 cups buttermilk, half a cup of vegetable oil. I used grapeseed oil. I used 3 eggs, and I added a full teaspoon of vanilla. And in that little bowl that's down to the lower left, that is my special ingredient, and that is black cocoa. That is a specialty ingredient that I get from King Arthur flour. You don't have to use it. It's not required, it's not necessary, it's just a little something that I like to add into my chocolate cakes, and I think it's good. It's actually the same cocoa that they use to make the cookie part of Oreos. That's why Oreos have that color and flavor that they have. It's from the black cocoa, and I used 1/4 cup. Over here I have my cake pans all prepped and ready to go. I am baking today's recipe in 3 6-inch cake tins. I have prepped my pans by first buttering and then using cocoa as opposed to flour, and I have put parchment in the bottoms. I have a full video on how to best prep cake pans, and I will link to that video for you in the corner as well as in the description. Our oven is preheated and we are using that Betty Crocker super moist cake mix today. The first thing that we do when we mix one of these cakes, this is my method anyway, I like to put the wet ingredients in first and get them well combined. And so we're going to add the buttermilk and the oil. I'm using my stand mixer because I'm blessed enough to have it and I love using it, so I use my stand mixer every chance I get. We are going to well combine the buttermilk with the oil. I also like to put my flavoring in at the beginning. Get those things combined, turn off the mixer, go ahead and put in all of your dry ingredients. We'll put in the cake mix, we'll put in the cocoa at this point. Just give that a quick little mix. Put the eggs in one at a time until they're combined. When everything is mixed in, give it a good scrape. You always want to scrape down your bowl. That's a really important part of baking when you're dealing with batter. Always scrape your sides. Give that a good scrape, and now we're going to crank the mixer up to medium high, and we're going to let it run for 2 full minutes. This is a really important step in making a cake mix. They're all written this way. Everyone I've ever seen, everyone I know of, they're designed to have this 2-minute mix time. It's just how they work. When it's all combined, we're going to evenly distribute through the 3 cake pans. I have found that about 330 grams a pan works really well. You can eyeball it. I like to use my scale. That's how I do it. You don't want to fool around and wait for a long time to get your cake mix or your batter into your pans. This is because there is a leavening agent, and when it gets wet, it activates it. We want to get these in the pan right away so that we get all the rise that we can get. We're going to then put it into that preheated oven, 350 degrees, as I said, and I find that the 6-inch rounds take about 30 minutes to bake. You're going to be looking for the sides pulling away and how springy is the cake. When it springs right back, then we know it's done. It's really critical that you don't overbake a chocolate cake because they can get really dry. So we really want to keep an eagle eye on our time and on our cakes and rely on those methods of spring back and pulling away to determine when that cake is done. So when they're finished, we pull them out. We're going to let them sit in the pan for just a couple of minutes, and then we're going to turn them out onto the cooling rack and let them have a good cool. And then we'll come back and start decorating. While the cakes are baking, that gives us a chance to gather our ingredients to make today's frosting, which is, it's a basic American buttercream, but I'm flavoring it using freeze-dried raspberries. So what we're going to do is to measure out about 20 grams of the freeze-dried raspberries. I'm going to measure them right into my little mini food processor, and then we can grind them into a fine powder. We want them to be about as fine as the powdered sugar so that they disperse equally and evenly through the frosting. If you don't use a scale, you can pretty much just say half of the bag. Just grind half the bag. If you don't have a food processor, just mash it up in a plastic bag. You can roll it with a rolling pin or something. Sift your powdered sugar. You really want that to be as smooth as possible. It's just a nicer experience when you put the frosting on the cake. And also, if you're going to pipe, you want to make sure that you've got really smooth frosting. And we are going to pipe on a few decorations at the end of this cake just to really dress it up. Let's get this cake frosted. The first thing we'll do is adhere the cake round to the Lazy Susan, and then we'll put that first layer onto the round. And this cake really sheds a lot of crumbs. So this first step, which is our crumb coat, is really important. If you want a really neat looking finish to your cake, don't skimp out on this part. And I've already leveled the layers, and all I'm doing is just getting that first coat of frosting onto the cake. That's it. We're just getting it on there. I have it evenly distributed through the layers, and now I'm just covering the outside. This doesn't have to be super neat and perfect. We just want to mostly cover that cake, and when we have it on and everything is covered, we will pop it into the freezer for about 15 minutes, and then we'll finish our decorating. And now I'm just using this little bench scraper I had just to smooth things out. The smoother you have it now, the nicer it will look when we are ready to put on the final frosting. While we're waiting on the cake in the freezer, I want you to see what came out of the raspberry powder that I sieved, because I went ahead and sieved the crushed raspberries into the powdered sugar. I didn't just dump from the food processor in. So it's really important that you sift the dried stuff that you pulverize before putting it in. It just makes a much smoother frosting. It's 15 minutes later, and I'm ready to put on my final coating of frosting with the cake. And I recently purchased this really big offset spatula, and I'm using that today. So let me first say this. I'm not a professional cake decorator. I'm a home cook, I'm a home baker, and what I'm sharing with you is a realistic representation of what it's like at home to frost your cake. So, I'm not professional. I'm not trying to be professional. I'm trying my best to inspire home bakers who feel like they can't do this sort of thing, to show them that yes, you can. And it doesn't have to be super perfect to still be a nice cake in the end. So I'm just doing a heavy coating and smoothing it down. That's all it is. And I'm going to tell you, it's not as easy as you think it is. And the full unedited version of this decorating was 30 minutes. So you want to allow time to frost and neaten your cake. I'm going to share something else with you. I use this little bench scraper I have to really smooth things out, but what really got my frosting to the nicest consistency was when I dipped the metal spatula into a tall glass of hot water that I poured from my tea kettle. And that's what's going on here, and that's why that is smoothing out so nicely. And you can see how it's smoothing the sides. I will tell you, it takes a lot of work to get it to look nice and neat at the edge. And there really is a lot of skill involved in doing a beautiful professional looking cake. So, and I'm not a professional cake decorator, so my hat is off to the people that do that. I wound up just like swooshing the frosting on the top, just swirling it around. And for me, that was the easiest way to finish this off and to get it to look reasonable. So I smoothed my sides the best I could do, and then I just kind of swirled the top. And I think it looks pretty. It worked out, certainly nice enough for something to serve at home. I've moved that frosted cake now onto the cake plate, and let me tell you, putting it on the little cake round really made this a lot easier. So the cake rounds are nice, and what I'm doing here is I'm piping on the little border. I think that really makes a big difference when you make cakes at home. And this is the Wilton 1M tip, and I'm just going all the way around and doing the little stars at the bottom. And then on the top, I'm just doing a simple swirl. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about working with frosting and how to put together a layer cake like this, I will link in the description below to some other videos I've done kind of showing you the full process of doing this at home. And of course, sprinkles at the end always makes everything super special. So I'm adding sprinkles, and I have been playing with decorated cookies. And to finish off this cake, I decided to affix 2 of the little kitten cookies that I've made onto the front of the cake. And I think it's adorable. And that is the chocolate cake with raspberry frosting. So pretty, so amazingly delicious. That cake is so light, and I'm sure the buttermilk has everything to do with that. So don't skimp on the buttermilk when you make the cakes. It really does make a difference. You will get a much lighter, fluffier, higher bake. And you could see when I took those out of the cake pans, there's a lot of cake in there. So it's really easy to distribute your batter between 3 6-inch pans. So don't be afraid to do that. It's a little bit different, but it's so fun, and the cakes look amazing. That's all I've got for you today. I sure appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate you being here. I hope that you will try this delicious cake and let me know what you think and how it was. Okay, that's it. That's all I've got. Thanks for hanging out, and I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video.